Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto Anime review. This one's going to be for episode 175, which is called Beyond the Limits, and this was obviously the episode we were waiting for. They went big on the animation here with the high quality deluxe animation. Really important fight here with the rematch of Team 7 against Deepa, but also on the other side of the episode, an equally important fight with Orochimaru and Konohamaru against Victor with the Divine Tree growing. So this was a very eventful episode, and I think it really delivered on what we've been building up for. So this episode has so many notable moments, like Sarada finally at last gets her second tomoe of her Sharingan. That was fantastic to see. We do get the return of Mitsuki, which I think was the obvious call. I know a few people predicted some other characters from last episode, but I think Mitsuki was the obvious one to do. And then we saw, I suppose, that Boruto's high compression Rasengan is capable of cracking Deepa's armor, but Deepa has a whole extra layer of armor, highlighting that he is on a whole other level than anyone they've ever fought. That one-on-one, he is just better than anyone on the team. But as a group, they can overcome him even in this mode. So I think that's an interesting way to do it, that they're not quite ready to make Boruto, Sarada, or Mitsuki individually the same power level as a kind of relatively high up Kara member like this, but that with their teamwork they do have sort of the tools to maybe get a victory now and then. I think that's actually a nice balance to have, given that the characters are still very young, but that they clearly have the potential to become characters who will be able to fight one-on-one against them. And I think we sort of saw this with sort of like Naruto and his growth of coming up against a stronger opponent, and then by the time we got to sort of like middle of Shippuden, he was able to fight against nearly everyone just on his own if he needed to. So that was really, really fun to see. I suppose I'll cover the Konohamaru, Orochimaru, and Victor fight first, because they didn't linger on this one as much. I think I need to say something about Konohamaru, and that's just that, look, I get it. Konohamaru had his arm injured, and that is why he wasn't able to do as much in this fight. The point that I think a lot of people make when they're criticizing how the show portrays Konohamaru is that they didn't need to write the plot so that Konohamaru gets injured in the first place, because the whole purpose of that is basically so that Konohamaru doesn't get to do much in the fight because he is injured. Instead, why not write him to not have the injury? Have Mugino get the injury. He has to obviously, flee and get the daimyo to safety. But Konohamaru remains. And you can have Konohamaru and Orochimaru tag team Victor. Now, I get it, Victor, power level wise, he probably didn't need, 2-on-1 to take him out, but I think you needed to have Konohamaru show up a little bit more than he actually did. Just because it feels like he should be on the level of a Kakashi, like I've said many times before, in that if something does happen to Naruto, who's the next candidate to be Hokage? It feels like it should be someone in the Konohamaru range, realistically. Because, you don't think Sasuke is going to take over, and, I think Kiba of that generation is the only one who showed an interest in the role, but I don't think they're going to give it to him. So if you're looking at the next generation, it kind of feels like Konohamaru is that likely candidate, because obviously Sarada, who wants to be the Hokage, is way too young. And he hasn't shown up on that level just yet. They're not willing to showcase an extra layer of jutsu that he has, that he can use to pull out in the same way that Sarada, Mitsuki, Boruto can. He still is just okay, he has the standard kind of chakra kind of blade things that he uses. He uses some fire style jutsus, and of course he has a few different Rasengans. And that's a nice skill set, but where is the next layer of that? And that he even commented during his fight that, like, oh, Victor has all 5 changes in chakra nature. He can use like earth, wind, water, everything. And he notes that, oh, Saratobi was like one of the only people he knew who could actually do that. So obviously Victor is like either incredible or modified in some way to be able to do that. And it almost felt like they were setting up something where like Konohamaru needs to improve to maybe learn to do that himself. I think that would be a relatively cool thing to give Konohamaru eventually if you need to upgrade his skill set, is like just be like, yeah, he can do styles of jutsu beyond just fire. He can do a couple of them from each of them. That seems like a nice just general skill set to give him. But again, it's just like, okay, he uses a jutsu even though his arm is injured. That's cool. But it was basically a setup for, oh, look, Orochimaru's here. He's going to fight Victor. And look, the fight was fantastic because it was a really well animated episode. It's just, can we please have something good happen with Konohamaru? Please. But yeah, what you got here was 2 characters who have regeneration, able to hit each other with their really high, powerful jutsu, and that created a very different style of dynamic to the other fight going on, where it was more of a who can deal the first like clear blow will, win that fight. Here it was who's going to deal the most devastating blow to like break through their regeneration and so on. So like Victor gets his head bitten off by one of Orochimaru's snakes. Orochimaru loses an arm. He comes back, takes out both of Victor's arms. And it builds to this situation where Victor, obviously, the divine tree is continuing to sprout and so on. And finally he feels, oh, the chakra fruit is about to bud. It's about to open and reveal the chakra fruit. So he goes up to get it, and the tree just basically sucks him in. And I found that an interesting one in that, like, if you didn't know Victor appeared in the manga, you would assume that this is the death of Victor, that his big project has turned against him. It's a sort of fitting death for this character who wasted so many lives, and his life that now is taken in the same way that he tried to take everyone else's, by feeding the chakra fruit. But we know he appears in the manga as like part of the sort of setup for the next like manga arc. So unless they're changing what happens to Victor, I think we will see him again, and it looks more like Deepa is actually the character they've killed off here, which fits more in line with what we as manga readers know. But that's just something to keep an eye on. Ultimately, what has to happen here is that this project failed. Like this fake divine tree was an ultimate failure. They activated it too soon, and who's to blame for that? Victor, ultimately. That Victor was in charge of this, and I suppose the blame for Deepa's death as well as the divine tree is going to go on Victor, and we're going to have to see what the high-ups in Kara feel about what Victor's just done. So that was that. And then, yes, the big fight here. Boruto and Sarada initially against Deepa, but then Mitsuki comes in. And, this was really cool to see, because like you see Boruto and Sarada putting on the best show they can against Deepa, that he's using, as is revealed, only his sort of basic stuff here against them, and they're putting everything they have on the line. Sarada is able to avoid Deepa's cubes better, but it's still not like perfect. She really needs that second Tomoe, but it's not coming right now. Boruto can't find the space and time to actually generate his high compression Rasengan, and it's not enough with just Sarada there to create a distraction to allow for him to do this. So Mitsuki entering the battle creates that third member who gives Boruto the time to set up some of his more powerful jutsu. And I like that ultimately it was logical that Mitsuki's going to come in here fresh off surgery. He's not going to really have any power-ups necessarily, but he's still a skilled shinobi in his own right, and like we pretty much know that, like, I'd say right now Mitsuki probably is the most powerful member of the team if you had to just highlight all of his abilities versus theirs. So he was a notable addition here, and even that isn't enough. As Deepa begins to kind of further and further use his abilities, he just showcases that he's better than all of them here. And I was really wondering what path they were taking here, because Boruto's getting defeated, Sarada's getting defeated, Mitsuki's getting defeated. What's happening here? And you get that, I think, really, really strong character moment where everyone is down and it looks like Deepa is ready to finish them all off. And he's going to go for Boruto first. And Sarada, out of nowhere, just appears in front of Boruto, protecting him. And is like, no, we're not losing here. I will protect Boruto, I'll protect everyone, because I'm going to be Hokage. I really like this, because this is, Sarada really putting her name out there. Like, I'm the leader of Team 7. I'm showing it here. This is a moment that is going to work really well for her with regards to, proof of why she should become a Hokage one day. I love this moment because this is very in line with sort of typical like Naruto moments, so I like that quite a lot. And this is what awakens her second Tomoe, is just putting herself on the line in this way. Kind of an emotional statement of her goals is what awakens it. Not necessarily any sort of tragedy or anything like that. But the result here is kind of interesting in that, as I sort of suspected, the second Tomoe, they don't really highlight it necessarily as giving Sarada any particular like extra powers, in that the one thing she ends up doing after her power up is that she has a little bit of a taijutsu sequence with Deepa, and it results in her doing the chakra strength punch, and she does manage to get the first sort of crack in on Deepa's armor. So again, without the explanation, like, she didn't do a crazy dodging thing like has sort of been set up. She instead, I suppose, the second Tomoe, I guess, adds a little bit of extra chakra control to her Sharingan, so she was able to focus more of her control on activating the chakra strength, which made it more effective. And I'm guessing as well the second Tomoe just allowed her to target a part of his arm where she connected, where her punch actually did begin the shattering of his arm. Again, probably needed an explanation, but it was a very strong character moment for Sarada, and she at least got like the first crack against Deepa. And then this is where Boruto comes in. We see the high compression Rasengan hit, and it again continues to crack, and it feels like it's about to fully shatter, but then Deepa reveals the full extent of how heavy his armoring can go. And it seems like he has like 2 or 3 other levels, because he gets this really cool like half white, half black armor. Like, it's a full sort of knight's armor stuff all over him. And then in the final blow sequence, it's revealed that he can even sort of increase it even more to make it sort of like diamond armor, which I thought looked really, really cool. But they don't really showcase him doing all that much. I think he kicks Boruto away in this armor, and it looks like, how are they going to handle him here? But what happens at this point is that like the other side of the story begins to suddenly affect this one, where because they've defeated Victor, Orochimaru uses a clones and like a ceiling barrier to basically destroy the divine tree. So it begins to melt, and Deepa sees this, and because this whole thing is about tastes and flavors, the thing he wants more than anything is to eat the fruit of the divine tree. That dream is now going away, so he looks away from his opponents and panics for a bit, seeing the tree melt. And this gives time for Boruto to prepare his next high compression Rasengan. So he comes in with that, and it looks like just out of sort of sheer willpower he's going to be able to just boost it up to the next level to break through, in that he begins to crack Deepa's enhanced armor, but then Deepa sort of puts the diamond armor on. It looks like it's not going to be enough. But then the big moment here is Mitsuki comes in behind Boruto and sort of in Sage mode adds his Sage chakra to Boruto's Rasengan, as well as, I think notably, and this is a really important detail with what was set up before, he wraps his arm around Boruto's arm, to be sort of more in sort of direct contact with the high compression Rasengan, and Sarada comes in at the back as well. So the idea is that they're both channeling chakra into Boruto, so it's like a 3-person chakra with sage chakra, sage nature energy attack. And this is where we basically get the rainbow Rasengan from the opening that has been sort of teased for a while, and this is the super high compression Rasengan, which completely shatters all of Deepa's armor, injures him. He's out for the count basically with this move. And the result of this is that Mitsuki doing what he did saved Boruto's arm from being blown off, and instead his arm gets blown off, but because he has a sort of regeneration a la Orochimaru, he's going to be okay. So that all I think worked really well to explain a lot of the risks about the high compression Rasengan, in that I think as Boruto went to do it the second time, Sarada warned him like, no, your arm, and that's why, you know, I suppose Mitsuki then acted. So I thought that was kind of well explained, in that, okay, here's like a team maneuver they can all do that kind of is a really high level ability. Probably not something they can necessarily do just like out of nowhere on a whim. This definitely seemed like a more last ditch, the situation worked out to make this happen. But I wouldn't mind seeing this again. I thought this was cool that they have this, you know, the 3 of them powering a Rasengan puts them up to like a pretty high level. So Deepa ends up dying as far as we're aware, because one of the boulders, as the tree is on the top floor, so it cracks the full ceiling, and basically a giant portion of the ceiling lands directly on Deepa. And the idea is that he was saying his like last words, that like his dream hasn't come true, and he's crushed by a rock. So I don't think we're going to see him again. I'd be really shocked if we did. The significance of this moment, I thought they had to deliver on it, and I think they did. Victor, obviously, I think we will see again, because he was sort of like taken out like relatively early in the episode, and they never really lingered on what was going on, but that's the result of it. Then right towards the end of the episode, Orochimaru reveals sort of how Mitsuki made it here to Konohamaru, that there was a like last minute donor. So I completely called this from like a few episodes ago, that the way they were going to get Mitsuki back onto the battlefield or recovering quicker was going to be that Log would give his organs to Mitsuki, and Log would be the one in Mitsuki's position waiting for the organs to be grown that they set up from before. And that's exactly what they did, and I think it made a lot of sense. It kind of showed Log's support of Mitsuki, and you know, ultimately, now that we have the plot of this, it made complete sense that the reunion of Team 7 in this final battle was what won the day. So really, really cool moment over there. The defeat of Team 7, and now a victory for Team 7. Last thing, Miss Mia. So we finally covered kind of what she was up to. The result of which was basically that she gets to see Victor doing all of his crazy jutsu and see that he's behind it, and the way he's talking about all of the people sacrificed for the divine tree are just like trash basically, and she just begins to kind of hate him after this. She's been sort of hesitant about like, should she, you know, basically talk against the company. She's still unsure about if Victor is actually a bad guy or if it's just a shinobi telling her that. But here she sees fully that the person responsible for her husband's death is right here, and he's basically calling her husband trash and that he didn't matter. So that was I think a solid moment. And then at the end of the episode, Mia talks to, you know, Boruto and Sarada, and I will do everything I can to, like, you know, campaign against them. I'll say anything you want me to say basically. So not the most important character arc, but I like that they came back to it in the end. I think having that come full circle of you have sort of now an outsider, not a shinobi, being able to say what exactly happened here. And this is going to be, I suppose, what fully ruins Kara's plans with this facility, is that they can't cover it up of just like, oh, enemy shinobi can't come here. No, the people here also know what happened. So that was kind of significant. And yeah, there's the episode, the reunion of Team 7. They get a big victory, but individually they still have quite a ways to go, is the impression, but they've definitely improved overall. The last thing I suppose to talk about is the preview for next episode, which looks to be just a direct result of this episode, which is that because they know Kara is a threat and there's more of them than they expected, they're going to increase security on the village gates, and it looks like it's going to just be about all of the different Genin teams being put to work, increasing the security. I don't know exactly what they're building towards here, in that is it just shoring up the defenses, or are they expecting an attack right now? I'm not really sure what to expect from next week's episode based on the preview, because they didn't give you any hint about something's actually coming. But I guess we'll get a little bit of a kind of end of arc style thing as we get the reports, I suppose, from everyone to Naruto, and the reaction is going to be shore up the village. But yeah, they've been my thoughts on Boruto episode 175. Definitely one of the best episodes of the Boruto anime we've ever had. Absolutely one of the best animated. I think probably the only episodes that sort of rivaled this were probably some of the high animation episodes from the movie arc. But I haven't watched those in a while, so I can't even compare directly in my head. This definitely stood out a lot to me, though. So let me know your comments on this episode in the comment section below. But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.